Go, Andrea? All right. A little before, but we'll reconvene in open session, and I want to thank everyone for being here. We'll start off with our Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we're going to start off with our spotlight on education. Jeff.
All right, as Becky's pulling things up here, we're going to draw two lucky winners. One will do a foot race against Luciana after this, and one will wrestle Coy. So nobody can leave. Shut the door. We'll have some fun. You know what? I know a lot of big decisions that take place in this room, but this is a really positive thing that we're going to talk about tonight. I appreciate everything that the board does, but it's kind of fun to highlight some of the great things that are happening with our squads, but especially some of our individuals who have been very successful. So first, and we're going to go in chronological order here, I'm going to have Luciana stand up here. Luciana, you don't have to give a speech or anything, but these athletes are probably sick of me recognizing them, but we got one more event after today. We're going to recognize them at the first varsity football game on Friday night. So I just wanted to take a second to recognize Luciana. She set the school record as a freshman in the 100 meter and the 200 meter. I think the 200 meter was pretty special. It held for 27 years, and that individual is in the room today. That's actually her mom who had that record. So yeah, let's hear it for Luciana. So she breaks the record during the regular season, then obviously we have the state track meet. She goes down there, and it's a pretty special event. With technology, I don't know if most of you caught that, but fortunately I worked with Tracy Hendrickson, and we legally figured out a way to show this tonight at the board meeting. And so we're just going to take a second here, and we're all going to take in the race. It doesn't last very long. It's under 12 seconds, I can tell you that. Wow.
Aspera and Lily Strong have been near the top of the honor roll all season long.
Aspera from Amery in lane 5, the only one to go sub 12 seconds yesterday, 11:96.
Yep, she is the real deal, no doubt about it. And she had a good start.
Johansson of Clinton in lane 4 had a good one too.
Yes, she did. And she's not about to give up her state title.
But Aspera from Amery, the freshman, crosses the line first.
Boy, did she ever get out.
The chills. That's a big event for anybody, but when you're a freshman, we're talking the 100-meter dash. She is the real deal. So she happens to be tardy this year, which she's never tardy, or she's late for class, or needs a get out of jail card. She'll just tell me she's the real deal and remind me.
She shouldn't be late because she just runs the class.
You know, that's one thing I'll talk about, and you would never know walking in our building, and we'll recognize Coy here in a second, but they are true student athletes. Talk to any of our staff members, talk to their peers. They don't want to be up here being recognized, but they're always doing the right thing in and out of the classroom, and so we appreciate that. So let's give it up one more time for our state champ.
It was cool watching Luciana. It was really awesome.
All right. All right, now we'll bring Mr. Coy Hopke to the front here. All right, we're talking a world championship here. So we've recognized Coy a couple times here as an individual state champ in Wisconsin. That's not good enough. Even a national champ's not good enough. This guy's world caliber. So he's been busy here this summer, and it's been a kind of a lifelong journey, I would say. Coy and I sat down last week, and it wasn't a podcast, but we had a little conversation. We shot out on social media, but he's been busy this summer. Went to Buenos Aires, demolished the competition there, and then had some good competition at Worlds, and he's a freestyle world champ, and we're going to take that in here, and we're going to watch, I believe, 40 seconds of his last match here.
It was a tough one.
Series bar. He's going to step over. No. Not past 90. Now he's got 2 more. It's 5-5. And what? Oh, the official stopped it. Oh my goodness. Hips down. Got a hamstring and a takedown, maybe a near. That caution was not confirmed, by the way. 13 seconds left. Another takedown for Hopke. He's 10 seconds away from a gold medal. Short time on the clock. Coy Hopke is going to ride this thing out on top. And he's going to be a gold medal winner. Men's freestyle.
Yeah, so that never gets old, and Coy's super humble like Luciana, and it was kind of nice to see him show some emotion there, a little flex and whatnot. That was cool. So you can do that when you're a world champion. So Coy's another kid, easy to cheer for. He's a role model student at our high school. I know there's some folks in here that have really helped him along the way. His family's here, and Coach Kelly's here too. So want to thank them for all their work. And Coy, we just pulled him out of football practice. Hopefully you got a conditioning maybe. I don't know what you were doing out there, but I saw you get in the big Dodge and race over here. So again, Coy, congratulations on your world champion.
I was willing you over, but it didn't help out.
You know, lucky winners for the foot race.
I think that's
Josh Cool.
So, Mr. Fern, are you gonna open up your own podcast? Because that was quite a cute little interview there.
Yeah.
Very professional. I thought maybe you were looking for another job there.
No, Valley Sports called, but it sounds like they had a few other folks that they were interviewing. So. Mr. Gould had the Go Big Red podcast. Once I listened to that, I said I can't compete with that. So.
Yeah.
All right. Congratulations.
Yes. Yes.
You guys. Yeah, you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, shout out to Reggie Schleichner too, because he keeps putting them out on social media, like waking up at the crack of dawn, so all of us can just join in. So thanks, Reg. Follow him on Facebook.
Wonderful. Excellent. We have one for community comments, and so I'll read the, oh wait, we're going to do the consent agenda items, I'm sorry. We do change the agenda, where we're going to not do the, under action items, the easement, correct?
Well, we still have something to talk about there.
Oh, you want to?
There won't be any action necessary.
Okay, all right. And who did the vouchers?
So I had the vouchers, so I will make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items.
Okay,
As
and a second?
presented.
Second.
Aaron, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. And opposed? None. All right. So here's our guidelines for addressing the board. Welcome to this meeting of the School District of Amery Board of Education. We are pleased that you are interested in the work of the school board. You may address the board only during community comments time on the board meeting agenda. Any resident, district employee, or guest invited by the board may make comments about any decision, policy, or board meeting agenda items. The following guidelines have been established for addressing the Amery Board of Education. For those wishing to speak before the board, a sign-up sheet will be available prior to the start of the meeting. If the topic noted on the sign-up sheet is deemed to be out of order, the presiding board member will inform the person wishing to speak prior to the start of the meeting. Community comments must pertain to a board decision, policy, or board meeting agenda item. Comment time is limited to 5 minutes per person. However, the time limit may be increased or decreased at the discretion of the presiding board member. Political speeches which are not materially related to board decisions, policies adopted by the board, or are not about a board meeting agenda item are strictly forbidden. Personal criticism of members of the Board of Education or employees of the school district are also strictly forbidden. Please stand to be recognized. After being recognized, state your name and the municipality where you live for the record. The board normally receives citizen input and does not respond or debate. If there is a need for an answer or a response or to a concern or issue, the district administrator or one of the other administrators will get back to you with a response. If your concern requires board action, it may be placed on the agenda of a future board meeting. And so I have Stephanie Jansen, but you did not write what your topic is.
I'm just reading
reading and email.
Yep. Stephanie Jansen, Garfield Township. So I'm just gonna, some of the board already got some of this email. And it's in reference to, in June, when I presented the obscene book content in the Amery School District Library and through SORA. Dear Sean Derfler, at the July meeting, I noticed there were several errors with the information and data that you provided to the Amery community in your PowerPoint in regards to the book material I had shared at the June school board meeting. I am formally requesting that you issue a public retraction verbally at the next meeting and in writing on the official meeting notes from that meeting and in every print publication where your information was inaccurately reported within the next 30 days. It was presented by you at the July school board meeting that the list I provided in here only contained 18 titles, which is false. The list I handed to you and our board members included 2 titles from the rated 5 category, 24 titles that are rated in the 4 category, and 32 titles that are rated 3, and several other titles that have not been rated. I have been and continue to be available for further questions regarding the material I presented at the June board meeting. I encourage you and any of the board members to reach out with questions, concerns, and clarification. The presentation also claimed that 6 of the 18 titles provided to the district were never available to the students. Again, this is false and very misleading. The 6 titles mentioned, Push Triangles, Infidus, Crank, Luck, and Forever, were never on the list I provided to the school board, to the board and yourself. And I referenced the list in the email. Furthermore, the presentation highlighted that, and you stated that none of the books included in the proposal are required reading for the Amery students, which is, to the best of my knowledge, as we are still waiting for an official list of required reading, false. The Handmaid's Tale, along with The Hate U Give, are required reading for some Amery students. And with that, I included the list of titles that I attached in this handout that everybody got. Stephanie, thank you for reaching out to me with your concerns about the information provided in response to your book rating system proposal and the related PowerPoint presentation at the July meeting. Attached to this email, you will find the book rating system information which you sent to me, Josh Gould, and the members of the board the day after the June board meeting. In this document, you provided excerpts from 18 books. That is where the number 18 comes from. In addition, you will find attached to this email the PowerPoint presentation made on this topic at the July board meeting. Please note the title of this slide, which references the 18 book, is Checkout Statistics for the Excerpted Books. The 6 books you have listed in your email are part of the 18 excerpted books you provided selections from. I understand that you included far more than 18 books in your proposal. In the PowerPoint, all the book titles you provided from each of the 5 categories were acknowledged. Books from all categories were broken down by physical and e-book checkouts. The high school English department is meeting with Mr. Gould regarding the required books during teacher in-service in late August. After this meeting, I will provide you with a list of all required books in the high school English. I have not contacted you regarding your book rating system because I did not have any further questions. Please let me know if you have any other questions. Sincerely, Sean Derfler. Sean, please refer to the June board meeting where I presented the material. I did not present the 18 included excerpts as titles found within our district, although some of those titles may be found in the district selection. The excerpts included in the condensed packet I presented in June or in the beginning of the PDF you've attached were examples to help bring an understanding to the framework of the rating system. I explained that to the board in June. The last pages of the packet I handed out to the board, as you can see here, several pages, included a list of rated titles in our district selection, along with the links to the excerpts. The PDF you attached has all level 3, 4, and 5 rated excerpts printed and included versus just the links. This packet had just the links for the books of the Amery School District. The information you provided in your presentation is very misleading, and I would hope it's not intentional, as I have provided over 50 titles with content questionable for the maturity of our Amery youth. To support the board's effort of transparency and communication, I am still requesting a public retraction verbally at the next meeting and in writing on the official meeting notes from that meeting and in every print publication where your information was inaccurately reported within the next 30 days. This situation of book content and misleading information is of great concern to me, and I feel it is something we could work together on. As always, I encourage you to reach out if you have any questions or concerns. I think this is the last one. Stephanie, I appreciate your interest and concern regarding the presentation on the book rating system information. I stand by the presentation made to the Board of Education in July, as it was certainly no attempt to misrepresent information about a very important topic such as this. Sincerely, Sean Derfler. At the board meeting last month, Erin questioned the number of titles in your presentation. You cut her off and told her that you referenced this PDF I have printed in front of me. You also accused Dennis Carson of fabricating numbers last month, which you have just done to me now. All I'm asking is that you clarify the stuff that I put and shared with all of you guys. The transparency is going to go a lot further than not. I'll give this.
Thank you. Next, we'll have our administrative reports.
Okay, well, we're wrapping up our downtime at the high school. I just want to report that we did find out that we received a $1,000 grant from Operation Polk Burnett Operation Roundup. That's something that Karen Gange has put in for. It's used. This will be used in connection with our mental health initiative that's been going on. All fall sports teams have officially started as of today, so all of our fall sports practices are rolling. I had a data retreat team in at the high school today to spend a lot of time looking at state assessments. We're very fortunate, Mr. Benson is one of the absolute best data coordinators in the state, and we have access to him, and he's taught all of us really how to dive into the WISE system. And so we were able to get some really good data today, kind of some things to guide our discussions. And Mr. Benson also, kind of as big brother here, has showed me some things that, put a smile on our face for some things we saw for results at the high school. So some positive things there. Future events, we've got the Fall Festival royalty events coming up, Pie and Ice Cream Social. Of course, the in-service days, our Warrior Welcome Day, and the first day of school.
Yeah, just say that right there.
So Josh mentioned, orientation, or all staff Warrior Welcome Day, and then the first day of school. Sports start at the middle school as well. Next Monday, football starts at the middle school, and then the following Wednesday, middle school volleyball and cross country. So we're excited to get them, all three of those sports up and running. Sixth grade orientation at the middle school is Tuesday, August 23rd from 4:30 to 6:30, and invites went out to parents for sixth graders, and they sort of have a time slot if they can make it. If they have to come and run the other times, that's just fine. We also have a 7th and 8th grade open house at the same time, which is a little much more informal, where they can go and meet their teachers and check out things. In addition to that, we're excited. We have our first Warrior Way celebration coming up on the 31st as well. And then I want to mention Dramarama sign-up night, because that is coming up here on September 13th, which seems a ways off, but we won't have another school board meeting before then. And Dramarama is like an experience where students in, I believe it's grades 3 through 8, can sign up and participate in one-act plays and get a first exposure into drama and performing. So.
This past week, Paula and I accompanied 15 educators to the PLC at Work Institute in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Educators from all 4 buildings participated with us. It was wonderful. It's held at the Minneapolis Convention Center, and there's all different speakers and breakout sessions that really pertain to the work that we do, and we had a lot of commitment. We came back really excited with some really great resources that we hope to put into place. 5 educators from the intermediate school attended a virtual PBIS conference, a nationwide conference, and they learned about just some new PBIS initiatives and how they really support our framework that we have in place for positive behavior intervention supports. Summer school took place the last 2 weeks at the intermediate school. It was wonderful to see the busyness again. It's my favorite time when it's quiet here. I don't like that, so it was wonderful to have lots of people here again. Summer school, I also want to thank Laura Shelgren for all of her work that she put into supporting our students, as well as the teachers, the paraeducators, and all the custodians that put in extra time just to make sure that our students are here and have the opportunity to continue to learn. Summer work, our PBIS committee here has met to kind of review our processes for the year and lay out our timeline for what our program will look like. New certified staff are in the process or have completed the FastBridge assessment trainings that are needed to screen our students starting in the fall. One more update on English language arts adoption process. Today, K-5 teachers attended a full day of in-service at the elementary and here at the intermediate school. It was 2 hours of virtual professional development, and then the other remaining time was to plan out their first unit and identify their learning essentials. Some upcoming things are in-service week, intermediate school open house on the 24th, Warrior Welcome Back Day on the 31st, and then the official first day of school, September 1st.
Jessica?
Yes.
Would you do me a favor?
Sure.
You almost did like what I do when I talk military jargon.
Oh, sure.
Could you?
The acronyms.
Thank you.
Sure, sure, yep, they just roll off the tongue.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just in the future.
No problem.
All right, so absolutely, we had that English language arts training today, and that was really beneficial, and it was really great to see all the teams together and really putting their minds to what's coming next as they've gotten all of their materials opened up, so that was really nice to see. Our open house, we're looking forward to seeing our families at Lean on Wednesday, August 24th from 3 to 4:30. Our leadership committee. Sorry. Our leadership committee has met over the summer to brainstorm, discuss schedules, and develop building-wide consistent plans for the upcoming school year, so that's been really nice. Our leadership team at Lean Elementary has just members from all over across the building in special ed and general ed classrooms and specialists and so forth, so it's been really great to meet with them. Our staff meet and greets, I did all of those in the last few weeks, and that was great, and there was just some wonderful ideas and thoughts, and just, yeah, it was really nice to meet everybody. Our PBIS committees are preparing to start meeting on September to plan out activities for the upcoming school year, so we'll have a Tier 1 and a Tier 2 team put together for that. And PLC Institute, the professional learning community was great. I agree with Jessica. It was really great, and we had 5 people from our building attend, and it was just really nice to see everybody together, get excited. 4K orientation, we're planning is continuing, and a 4K orientation is scheduled for August 29th and 30th, and parent informational letters have been gone out. So plans include things like informational opportunities provided by the Director of Nutrition, Clubhouse, Transportation, School Nurse, and Media Specialist. So there'll also be a fun picture booth there for people to take pictures with their new incoming students, so that'll be fun. August summer school session at Lean was welcome to 4K and welcome to kindergarten, and it was really fun to see those littles in the building and enjoying meeting their teachers and getting ready for the next school year. And the last thing on my list is a referendum. Design meetings continue, and they're taking place with staff and the design teams to kind of come up with a final plan to move forward. So that's exciting too. Upcoming events, a new teacher in service is coming up on August 22nd. All teacher in service the 23rd to the 25th. Our open house on the 24th, and 4K orientation 29th, 30th. Warrior Welcome Day back on August 31st and our first day of school on the 1st.
All right, a few updates, special education-wise. We've got a lot of staff in the building already, working in schools. As you may know and expect, we've got kids enrolling. Each one of those kids, if they have a special education plan, has an IEP that specifically needs to be vetted by administrators, building principals, sometimes related service providers. A case manager needs to be assigned, and then the family contacted to, ensure what services look like here in the school district of Amery, because oftentimes those plans are coming from Anoka Hennepin, or they're coming from Iowa, or they're coming from wherever these students are landing and hailing from. So it looks a little bit different, but it's something that we're able to do, but not without our staff coming in well ahead of the school start to get those services into place. And it'll make it even more exciting with adopting those new IEPs from different places, because this year we're going to be monitored by DPI in the PCSA process, which is the Procedural Compliance Self-Assessment. So this is the kind of thing that even if you're an experienced special educator, some of these items that they want you to look at in terms of compliance and writing IEPs and evaluations, nothing comes naturally to this. This is kind of things that you need to study. So that will, definitely be something new. Happens once every 5 years. So we'll be putting together a small cohort of teachers and looking at, our compliance indicators. We also have a paraeducator training coming up on August 24th. That's the third year of our paraeducator orientation. It's not just new, it's all paras. So what we really try to do is focus in on, what processes look like in each building, try to match paras with a lot of experience with those who maybe are just coming in, answer some questions, and really just kind of inspire folks to do their work and start off on the right foot by day one. We also have nonviolent crisis intervention training. That's a kind of a de-escalation and just positive rapport building with kids. We've got 3 sessions of those. 60 staff roughly are being trained all across employee groups. So we've got everyone from nutrition staff, bus drivers, special ed paras, teachers, PE folks, specialists joining those trainings, just to be proactive and preventative in terms of building good relationships with kids, and then also being prepared in the event that there would be a crisis. We don't know where that might be, so we like to have a nice cross-section of different employees to be able to be trained in de-escalation and crisis management. And last, we got a really great letter today. I expect you'll see this on the donations board in the future, but got a nice letter from the St. Croix Valley Foundation, pleased to inform us that we have been made a gift of a grant in $5,000 for the purposes of establishing an Amery Mental Health Fund. So it's really exciting news. Really, truly was the highlight of the day when I saw this on my desk. So thank you to and we're going to thank them again, but thank them right now, yes. The St. Croix Valley Foundation for their generous grant.
Brad, where would those dollars be used for? What would we use those dollars for?
I think it's coming to the pupil services group. Certainly one of the things that it could be used for would be essentially seed money for potentially some school-based mental health supports, whether that be direct therapy, it could be professional development for staff. But the great thing about some of these funding coming in from a donated source rather than DPI or some of these federal and state is that usually there are allowable costs associated to what the state and the feds give, whereas these donations from community foundations tend to be a little more flexible in what we can do. So I can't answer the question right now, but I can definitely give you some ideas.
No, that answered the question of, was there something that they had to be used for? Or,
yeah, absolutely.
Discretionary. Okay, thanks.
Keep us in the loop on that. I love it.
Absolutely, we will.
One thing I forgot to mention also, on Wednesday night, I'm going to Clear Lake at high school at 5 o'clock. Clear Lake Police Department, along with some Amery Police Department members and the Polk County Sheriff's Department are doing kind of a safety walkthrough drill. They're going to kind of mock some things out, and so I was invited to attend that. So I'm going to head over there. Similar conversations of what we had earlier in June, and I'll report back what I find out.
Thanks.
Good.
That's awesome that you're going. Thank you.
Yes. And you're up again, Brad.
All right. I need to come up there and do it from here.
Sean, did you want to speak in regards to what was said earlier? We went through all the the heads.
Nope, I'm good.
Are you good?
You're up, Fred.
All right, we've got this item on the agenda. This is something that happens every year, so many of you might be familiar with this. Wisconsin Act 125 requires some reporting around seclusion and restraint. This hasn't changed a whole lot because the statute hasn't changed in the last 3 years ago. It changed slightly, and we implemented those back in 2020. So it's going to look a lot like last year. So this application, Act 125, applies to both special ed and regular ed students. It applies to all district staff, independent contractors, and law enforcement. And just so we're clear about what we're talking about when we say restraint and seclusion, restraint is, it immobilizes or reduces the ability of a student to freely move his or her own torso, arms, legs, or head, and seclusion is the involuntary confinement of a student apart from others in a room or area from which the student is physically prevented from leaving. So the only time by state statute that we're really okay with using physical restraint is if a student's behavior presents a clear, present, and imminent risk to the physical safety of the student, to themselves or to others. So really, that situation where if we don't step in, there's a high likelihood that something negative is going to happen around safety with that student or another student. So the reporting requirements haven't changed each year. The designee, the pupil service director here, gives the number of incidents of seclusion in physical restraint in the previous year, and the total number of students, and then we break it out by students with and without disabilities. And the reason we do this, really to just monitor, how we're responding to some of the more intense behaviors throughout our school district, to ensure that we're using some sort of training and de-escalation to mitigate these instances, and just to inform evaluation and discuss district-wide training needs. So here are the numbers for 21, 22. Incidences of seclusion were 7, incidences of restraint were 9. Total number of students involved, special ed and general ed, were 6, and the total number of students with disabilities were 5. So, in terms of training, we really just, the state doesn't mandate that we use a certain company. There are a lot of really good evidence-based de-escalation companies out there. We happen to use CPI, Crisis Prevention Institute. There's others. There's MANT. There's Life-Space Crisis Intervention. But really, all these trainings really just focus on, building, you're seeing more and more building the positive, preventative, relationship building up front, and then of course they always really speak to what happens in crisis, what happens if you actually do need to use restraint, seclusion, what do you need to keep in mind, how do you minimize the length of time that you're in any of those situations. So we use nonviolent crisis intervention. We've got certified instructors here in district. They go up to a regional training every now and again to get recertified, and just really focuses on prevention, decision making, and then how to manage those holds and disengaging those holds if they are a need. Here's a list of our current trainings. One has already occurred on August 3rd. We've got one on the 17th and one on the 18th, and like I said, it will be close to 60 folks that we'll have trained by the time we get through all those trainings. And then we also, as part of those trainings, I speak just very briefly on just kind of the reporting documentation around restraint and seclusion if it's a need. So, again, why do we do this in summary? Just to really look at how we're approaching student behavior, focus on relationships, to see how this really connects to our student engagement activities, our big three, trauma-sensitive schools, PLCs, and school-based mental health. And then also, of course, it's been a topic over the last few years around just evaluating safety plans, conducting threat assessments, making sure that when we have high intense behaviors that we're debriefing and we're making plans around it to prevent it in the future. A few resources for you, but that concludes the report. If there are any questions, feel free.
I'm sure I could look it up from a year ago, but do you have the numbers of like how this year's numbers compared to the previous years?
Sure, yeah, the previous year we had, I don't have it right here in front of me, but we were in double digits, 18. I think there were 36 total between physical restraint and seclusion. But I think that is something that we can't, help but do, is look at numbers year to year. We also have to understand that a lot of those numbers are symptoms of the students that enroll in the district and their intensity of need for either short periods of time or the duration that they're enrolled. So while it is, interesting to look at numbers over time, that's certainly something the state over a long period of time would track. It's also really emblematic of, what our practices are and how they remain consistent. And the reason why you don't see a lot of this stuff changing is because I really feel strongly that we are providing a very positive and safe environment for our kids, and proactive and preventative strategies. If numbers of a certain amount come in, oftentimes it is circumstances of those students and the needs that they represent. And sometimes, what we need to do is to keep the environment safe. And so as long as we're focused on that we're looking at safety, that we're doing what we need to do to keep a student themselves safe or others safe, that's the key to look at. Numbers are important to look at too, but safety overall and providing a safe and supportive environment to kids, I think, is the key.
Anyone else?
How many law enforcement have been trained in this?
I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know of any. They don't attend our training, or we haven't had that. That might be something that we certainly could facilitate in the future.
Is that something you'd be willing to allow?
Sure, absolutely. They're going to be the first responders, if you will. If we're going to call someone, it's going to be them.
Would that be after our own people tried to deal with the situation?
Oh, yeah.
Well, our first call isn't outside. We
Right.
certainly going to
First we
seek
deal
to
with
address
it.
it on our own first.
Right.
Sure.
Does the police department have their own training procedures for dealing with kids, or?
Of course, yeah. This is a unique subject, but if Sean doesn't want to talk about what happened earlier, I don't think I need to talk about why this probably came into place.
I think we're all aware why it came in place. I was just wondering if the Amery Police Department,
Yeah, they have defense and arrest tactics that we're trained to use.
but, I mean, are they trained specifically with like these kind of?
No, we're not trained by, what did you say, CPI?
Yeah.
No, we're not trained in CPI.
I think it's also important to note, the CPI training, I would say 80% of it is more of the de-escalation techniques and stuff. The restraints and holds is a very small segment of the entire training process.
Because it's always the last resort, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Brad. Next, we'll have our informational items. George, you're up with the referendum stuff.
Well, George will assist me. I'll walk through it, and he can answer any specific questions you might have. This is the latest and greatest in regards to progress on referendum stuff that doesn't necessarily need a big design for like an elementary or a high school remodel. So right from the top, the football concession stand, not the stand itself, but underneath it, we're connecting the line to the city septic, and that is done. The baseball field press box, if you drove past that on your way in, you'll see that that is in progress. We had to replace that because of OSHA stating that we simply can't be in it anymore, it's not safe. The elementary school storm drain, replaced the pipe due to breakage, that is done. And the lighting here in this intermediate school is done, and HVAC controls here in the intermediate school are in progress. Anything you wanted to specifically highlight on that slide, George?
No,
Any
you-
questions that you might have for George or myself?
He listened well during that Buildings and Grounds meeting on Tuesday.
Are the HVAC controls here, are they gonna be done before school?
Yeah, they pulled the wire in. Now they just have to change out the actual controllers. So they have a couple days' worth of work and then some programming, and that'll be complete.
Good.
Okay, page 2, parking lots, the resurfacing here at the intermediate school. We have a little bit of work left to do. The exit to the parking lot, the main parking lot out front, is yet to be paved. Lighting at the middle school, that is in progress. We're switching everything over to LED. If you've been in this building, it's a marked difference between what we had in the past. Cooling tower isn't until November. That's not by our choice. That's simply supply chain issues, and that's when it's going to be here, we hope. So that's November. Questions on that page, or anything you wanted to highlight, George?
Hunt is about 85 to 90% complete with the lighting over there, so they could even wrap up by the end of the week. We gotta get an acceptable bathroom light for Mr. Benson.
Going into a,
Don't
All
forget
right.
the sidewalk to the middle school.
that's
Yep.
right.
That's gonna be redone too.
Yep.
ESSER 3 grant money, summer projects, the HVAC controls from Harris at the middle school, that's a work in progress. Heat pumps, there's a story on that, and George can walk you through that. We were hopeful this project would be done before school year, but just not going to happen. So, George?
Yeah, Harris, they would have been done with the whole project by the start of school. It would have been close. We did everything right. We got all the POs and the permission to start the project in April, March. The equipment was supposed to be delivered on time, early May, and long story short, 32 of the 66 showed up. We expected that they would be just a couple of weeks behind. Didn't happen. We finally got, and my fingers are still crossed because the date has already changed once. We're looking at 15 or so on, to ship August 25th. Another 12 or 13 won't ship until September 18th. And then a few stragglers will come in October. So we've already made plans to figure out how we could work during the school day and get them up. Now we just have to make sure that they actually do ship on those dates. We're waiting on a chip for the variable frequency drive motor that are in the heat pumps. So, and it's just across the board. Every big project right now, somebody is waiting on something. It's crazy.
Fund 46 summer project, these are not referendum dollars. This again is from Fund 46, which we were first able to use back in November of '21. That's the service road Warrior Way running east-west. That is done. There's still some signage and markings and potential curb stops, but the paving is done. So that's all wrapped up. And then the rest, I'm going to turn over to you, George, because it's pictures, and you'll do a better job of explaining than I would.
The kids were having a really fun time tonight driving their bikes down that newly paved road too. So
It's pretty nice.
They wouldn't have
yeah.
gotten very far in the past, I tell you that.
they were having fun tonight.
So this is a couple of photos of the before and after of the epoxy flooring here at the intermediate school. Around the drain, we had, the epoxy was flaking and cracking and coming up. So we had it, we had a new epoxy floor
poured, and looks good. The one picture, I believe, is probably a patch that I think Mrs. D'Ambrosio did a great job of color matching. I think it looks great.
I think it looks great, too.
Yeah, so that's the epoxy. Those are the old heat pumps that somebody picked up. I'm not sure of the company, but they reclaimed the refrigerant out of them and dispose of them properly. There's a new heat pump that's installed. All of those heat pumps that are up, we will have the ceiling will be replaced more than likely before school, at least on all 32 of those units, so. Press box, this is basically the footing detail. The hope is that'll get poured sometime this week, and then I believe our contractor, it's probably a couple, 2-3 days if everything's on site to basically erect it, so. And then I'll turn the last slide over.
The timeline, very likely we'll have KA and LHB here to talk about elementary design and high school design. It's on their calendar. We were hopeful to do it tonight, but we just didn't get far enough along. We have meetings next week, Monday and Friday, and we have continuous conversation about design-related items up to and including today. So you'll have design presentation then, and then we pretty much are done with feedback, and at that point, we do firm estimation, if it is such a thing in this market of inflation, and then after that, you put out bids and enter into contract, and every step of the way, you'll be aware of what's going on. So that's the timeline you've seen a couple of times, running all the way through the summer of '24. Questions for George or for myself?
Are you making everybody happy?
That's impossible.
Well, that's good, that means you're doing
Yeah,
your
that's
job.
right.
Thanks, George.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. The next is the information item on district financial documents.
All right, the request is made for some examples of what we present throughout the year, the audit presentation, and then our annual and budget hearing coming up next month. There's some examples we have here. The first one, in no particular order, is the audit report notations that CLA does, Jonathan does, regarding the full audit. That's quite extensive to go through all that and read through it. This is the highlights, per se, that he does for us, important points. Any questions on that one specifically, and how he arrives at those numbers and things like that? Certainly you'll see the 21-22 version of that next month, and look forward to that. It's a super exciting time.
Riveting, it's always riveting.
Yes.
The second one is the actual audit itself, so I don't think we need to read through all this. It would be here into tomorrow, I would imagine, so trying to go through all that.
But you did mark on here that it is available in board book?
And, yep, in board book and on the website, actually, so.
On the school district website?
Yep, under finance, you'll see going back years. There's several different reports on there, we go back years, so. The audit and, I forget what else, the annual meeting packet, I believe, is on there, and some other things, so. The next one is the required by DPI in the state publication of the budget. In the format that's in is required by DPI, as I said. And this is for last year, so don't think it's for this year and get confused. So it is for last year. And you'll see next year, or this coming year, the one we're in, next month, so. And then the final one is what we do, or I do for the annual meeting packet. And once again, this is last year's, and kind of some of the things we're going to be presenting next month. And if there's anything, like I said, if there's anything between now and the next meeting, certainly you can I can add it in if you guys want to have a discussion on that. There's, this is many different districts do different things. This is just the way we handle the format. So certainly, there's examples of other ways and other things that are presented, but it's another example of what we do. Do you have any comments on that, Sean?
Nope, pretty good.
Okay.
There we go. All right, lots of information.
Like I said, if you have any comments or ideas or anything you want to see, that's certainly open to that. And I think when I first started back, I said, is there anything we want to do different? And several of you said, no, we like the way it's presented, and so I haven't asked since, so.
All right. Thank you, Andy.
You're welcome.
All right. Next, we'll move on to our action items. You wanted to...
Sure, I'll touch on the easement. I was contacted by the city of Amery mid-afternoon today, stating that there's no need for an easement between the city of Amery and the school district of Amery. They have created a new design map for their development to the south of our land. I have not seen that map. It's sort of hot off the presses in that I got the call around 2. The purpose of this map is to help you understand, if you can follow, it's a little bit faint, the circle. You could pick it up well, there you go, zoom in. If you go to Valley Street there, you can see the circle going north and going south. And you'll notice in that area, that would be Otis Street. Our land is to the right of Otis Street in the bottom corner. The setback does not go into the school district of Amery land, so there isn't any impediment to developing any of the land down there in the corner. And in that, the city is no longer looking for an easement. There isn't any impediment to doing whatever we want in that area either, including putting in a crop if that's what we want to do. So really, we started with a much more complicated picture, and it sort of clarified and simplified itself without any of you really doing anything. So problem solved in so many ways. There will be the conversation that needs to be had and a plan to address, to put in a road in order to be able to develop houses down there, because we don't have a road. We have Otis, and then we don't have anything going to the east. So, questions for me?
Future plans.
Future plans.
Still
So,
wide
and the
open.
setback is the area that was gonna, the other map had it going through our land, and that was where we were not gonna be able to build because of the sewer.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much land, but it was clearly right through the middle of where that division of houses would be. That group of 10, 12 houses was right through the center.
And so, did they relay
Well, I'm not-
plans, or were they just?
In regards to the setback, I'm not the guy to ask that question of. My understanding of it, and again, my understanding of setbacks in city administration is rudimentary. But from what I understand is they simply did not have to do it the way that they originally proposed it. They went back to the drawing board, and at that point, they were able to change the setback line. And in the easement, it was just a matter of putting pen to paper and reauthoring what that development looks like. And I haven't seen what that new map is, but I'm sure that'll be for public consumption. It would seem like a very noteworthy item in the press. I would think that would be in the paper at some point here rather soon.
Yeah, good. Good. Well, no action needs to be taken on that.
No action.
They've withdrawn that.
Good news.
Yes. Next up, Jeff, again.
Getting a workout tonight, didn't he?
Not
This
much.
is not nearly as exciting.
Ah,
Yeah, I thought I hit a low point in my life this summer when I started looking at area schools, athletic codes and whatnot, but it's very important. Things come up throughout the year, whether it's our school, it's neighboring school districts, and we like to look at what our process is. If a situation up here, how would we deal with that situation? So basically, we're the first slide here. The purpose for our, athletic code is basically to make sure our student athletes know how to conduct themselves. It's a privilege to play high school athletics, and you're held to a higher standard, and we make that clear with our student athletes. They are kids, they are going to make mistakes, and when they do, they're teachable moments, but typically there's consequences that come along the way. Specifically, it's a 15-page document. It's long. I don't expect the kids to memorize it. We always go over the highlights of the document before each sports season, fall, winter, and spring. They do sign off when they register. I can't guarantee a kid reads very far into the athletic code, but it is there and it needs to be there. So tonight we're going to focus on how do we deal with consequences related to substance abuse, failing a class, in attendance at a gathering where illegal substances are present. So that last one is like if I'm at I'm at a party and other people are using illegal substances, law enforcement shows up, I blow zeros, other people were intoxicated, what's the consequence for me as somebody who was present, but I wasn't under the influence?
Jeff, you said that the kids sign it at the beginning, before they start sports, and the parents also still
Yes.
continue to sign it as well, and it states that they've reviewed the document with the children and that they understand the
Correct.
consequences as well, right?
Yep, it's part of the online sport registration process.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure
Yep.
that was still a thing.
It's part of their physical, concussion, all that registration that they have to go through. It's a formal process. So with something like this, obviously, we want input from our coaches. So I'm just going to kind of go about the process, how we got here. I emailed all the coaches, our varsity head coaches, so not assistants, but our varsity head coaches. We have 17 programs at the high school. Gave them that information on July 19th just to kind of look at. And then we held the in-person and Zoom meeting on the 26th to review some of these proposals, to get their feedback. And then I'm here tonight to present our proposals. First area we're going to look at is the substance use, substance abuse, however you want to phrase that. But essentially, if a kid is in the process, transporting, consuming of alcoholic beverages, controlled substances, performance-enhancing tobacco products, vaping products, 3 years ago, we didn't even really know much about vaping. And now, as you guys know, it's happening all over the place in all communities, all schools. So it's something that has really caused some issues, and we've had more athletic code violations related to that, and I did not forecast that just a few years ago. So our current penalty, okay, so a kid is under the influence or has an athletic code violation related to substance use, they're out 40% of their season. So, when you look at a 24-game season, like a winter season, you're out north of about 10 games there. The second violation is you're out the entire 100% of that season. And then our current policy, the third violation, you're out for 365 days. Now, on this next slide, you're going to see how we compare with our neighbors. And it's apparent that we're considered a little more strict than our neighbors. And basically, I chose schools in the Middle Border Conference. The only school you don't see represented here is Ellsworth. Nothing against the Purple Panthers. I just didn't have access to their athletic code. So I did a comparison here. And I was recommending to our coaches, we're currently, again, 40%, and you can see how we compare against the neighboring schools in the Middle Border Conference. We're slightly high there, asking us to be more in line with that. The first offense would be 20% of the season, second offense would be 40% of the season, and then you have a third offense, you're out one calendar year, 365 days. That's essentially Osceola's method. I'll talk about an honesty reduction. An honesty reduction, we'll be clarifying what that looks like. We are having more kids get caught with illegal substances on campus, and when I mean illegal substances, I mean the vaping. And again, 3 years ago, that wasn't as big of an issue, but we don't allow them an honesty reduction. If a kid gets reported that they're vaping in the bathroom, they come to my office, they admit to vaping, there's no honesty reduction there. It's 10-plus games of your season. Again, I'm using a winter sport season as an example. So,
Can I
yeah.
ask a question here? So say the first violation happens in a fall season and your second violation happens in a winter season. Are you talking, 100% then of your,
If your second violation, so say my fall sport was, we'll just say football, my winter sport was wrestling, now it's 40% of the wrestling season of your scheduled dates, your scheduled
Because it's your
contests.
second one, but it's only your first violation of that season.
Correct.
Okay.
It still will be 40% of that season.
Okay.
And then not to get more complicated, but sometimes we have a kid get an athletic code violation, let's say week 9 of the football season. Well, they still have to serve 20% of that violation, but it might feed into their next, whether they're out for wrestling or basketball or.
So it can carry over into the next
Absolutely.
season?
Yep. So we would have to recalculate that to see what, if they're missing 10% of their athletic code violation, then we got to figure out what is 10% of their winter athletic season and.
But it kind of resets, so you could have the first violation of a fall sport and then a first violation of your winter.
No.
No?
No.
Okay, that's what I was
This,
trying to-
okay, yeah.
So I'm saying if your second violation is in another season, a different sport.
Yep.
Are you still at 100% right now? Okay. yes.
Currently, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
that's what I'm
Yep.
asking.
100%. Okay.
So you're basically running a calendar year system.
Yes, and then we also have, a clean slate policy, we call it. If you have, say you got an athletic code violation yesterday, and then you go a full 365 days without an athletic code violation, and then in September, the following year, I get another athletic code violation, technically, it's going to count as your first one because you had a full 365 days. And that's pretty common among most athletic codes. It's called clean slate policy. Essentially, if you cleaned it up for a full year, you're back to square one. Okay, we'll continue. Again, I was just recommending, first violation would be 20% of the season, second violation 40%, third violation is a full calendar year, 365 days. And again, I think that puts us in line with our neighbors, and we did strengthen our, we'll call it a self-referral policy, but I'll get into that here later. So there's very little chance of turning yourself in. Like again, if I'll use the bathroom example. If you get caught on school campus, you can't say, "Oh yeah, it was me in there vaping." Well, we already knew about that you were in there vaping. But how it previously read, the kids would have expected to, "Oh, I was honest with you." And that's just one example, but that's more of something that happens more frequently than you would think, unfortunately. All right. Recommendations for activities. So this is an athletic and activities code. So, it also includes our clubs and organizations. And so on the next slide, basically, we would reduce this penalty in half. Just like we would the athletic side of things, I would reduce the activities by 50%. So we would update that. So instead of 4 weeks for performance, it would be 2 weeks. So on and so forth.
What is a performance activity?
And this was brought up, but it could be like marching band. It could be like the school play. Could you imagine having one of the lead plays in the school play? And you have an athletic, like how do you replace so-and-so in the play the night before or whenever it happened? But that's an example of performing arts. Yeah, performance. Moving on here, self-referral, we just kind of wanted to clarify this. Essentially, I'll give you an example. What this would be, and I've had this happen once in my career, going on my 4th year here, but I had a parent call in and say, hey, my kid's using illegal substances, they were vaping at home, I want my kid to serve a athletic code violation. In my estimation, in a situation like that, since they turned themselves in, nobody knew about the situation. The school wasn't informed about it. Law enforcement wasn't informed about it. We weren't tipped off by anything. They would essentially, instead of a 20% athletic code violation, they would get a 15%. So a 5% reduction. But it's no longer, you're not able just to turn yourself in. It used to be, if you go out and get a drinking citation, you had time to turn yourself in. Because we're reducing our athletic code violation, was at 40%, I like that, but now that we're down to 20%, I think that's consistent within the Middle Border Conference.
So now if they receive a citation and they come in and tell you the next day, there's no reduction?
No.
Because you already received the citation?
Correct. And it's also in the athletic code that if you get a citation, you are obligated to inform the athletic department.
So Are you asking to reduce this time because we're out of line with other schools in the Middle Border Conference? Or what, I guess, what is the driving force by reducing it when we have such a vaping problem at the high school that we're trying to get a handle on? This seems like a really good way to try to
Yeah,
keep
and
getting
you know,
a handle on it.
vaping is just one example, but does the crime meet the punishment? So there's certain things kids are doing. Should you sit out, and is that good for kids to sit out, 10 games, which could be a month of your season? In my mind, you're going to lose some of those kids, and they're going to make some poor decisions down the line, too. Does the crime meet the punishment? You fail a class, and we're going to talk about that, but typically, you're out 10%. Well, we're an academic institution. You only have to sit 2 games or 4 games compared to 10 games for something else, and we can just talk about vaping, but there's other situations that kids are getting involved in, too. That's just, again, the most common one that we're dealing with.
Right, but they're falling all under the same policy. I mean, there is no differentiation, right?
For
Vaping versus
Yes.
alcohol
Yep.
versus
Correct.
illegal substances, they're all falling under the
They
same
are.
policy. So if we're talking like, well, that vaping isn't as bad as maybe is what you're saying here is like another activity, then
Well, I think they're all bad. I'm just not sure that it's worth
Is it fair?
10 games of your season.
Is it fair? And again, I wanted to know, where did you get 20? I mean, you want to be the lowest standards of Osceola? I mean,
No,
the
but
lowest
I don't have a honesty reduction. The only honesty reduction that I have now is that you literally have to, you have to self-report without any knowledge.
But,
Right.
I mean, the first violation, the lowest one here with the lowest standards of, we'll call it ethics, is 20%, and it's Osceola 2040. And the other 4 around us
But-
have 25%.
Correct, and if you look at, if you actually look at like Somerset's athletic code, you look at Osceola's athletic code, there are other things they can do to reduce, to get it down to like even 10%. So an example for a school, if you get busted vaping, if you take like a vaping class or something like that, drinking a AA class or whatever, you can reduce that to 10%.
so if we had kids that have left a sport due to the way that our current violation policy is now, have we had kids like say, I'm out 10 games or whatever, so I'm just gonna quit, I'm gonna be done?
No, but what I have had is kids kind of fall off, like maybe not attend every practice, not going, traveling to the games. And for some of these kids, they need the sport more than the sport needs them, so it's trying to keep them attached to, what we have going on and provide some hope. The other thing I'll tell you is that 40% of a baseball season and a softball season in these spring sports, you could be out, I don't know, baseball and softball this year, we were playing 4 games a year, or 4 games in a week. You could be out for 3 straight weeks, and we only have a 5-week season until we get to the postseason. So with those cancellations and things like that, I mean, you have to think about that too. I mean,
So would it make more sense instead of just a straight percentage of each, would it make more sense to reevaluate this and do like a season by season?
well,
Game
so once you
schedule instead
once you
of, like,
decide that
percentage?
it's 20%, it's 25%, it's 30, whatever you decide, we then have a chart inside the athletic code that says if you have a 24-game season, this is how many games you're out for a.
Right, but like you said, so varying seasons, right? So I mean, if you have a volleyball season versus, so you're gonna have far more games for a volleyball season than possibly you would have for a softball season or a baseball season if you're talking about cancellations. Because that, I mean, that's kind of what you just said, right? Was that like some of those seasons would be shorter, or like a football season?
Yeah.
Only 9 games versus, I don't know, how many for volleyball, Dale?
I don't know, volleyball, but basketball.
Basketball,
22,
I mean, that would be
24.
like a huge difference then.
Yeah.
So would it make more sense instead of going a straight across the board a percentage than to have it broke down? Is that something you'd be interested in entertaining at all?
I mean, I prefer the percentage, and then we have the chart in there that just says, if you have a 24-game season, this is how many games you're out. If you have a 9-game season like football, this is how many games you're out. I think it's consistent across the board. The spring example is, Some springs we're playing games on March 31st when we schedule them. Some years we're not playing games until April 25th. You know, and all those games get made up, and then they're, you know, could be a 5-week season.
But it should still be a number of games, so.
It
if
is.
you're
It's-
out,
it
like,
still is, yep.
If you're still at 5 games, well, if it takes 2 weeks to do 5 games,
Yep.
or 2 days to do 5
Right.
games.
Like football's going to be, it's 2 weeks for your first athletical violation regardless, because you play 1 game a week.
If the baseball season starts 3 weeks late, let's say we missed 7 games. Typically, what we've done is we've subtracted 7 games off of that, so now we have a new total of, let's just say, 14 games, and then we take 14 games and apply it to the percentage chart, so that they're, and we certainly don't want them to get credit for the canceled games.
Right. I guess you understand my point of some seasons have far more games versus
Right, and I think the
some other
percentage,
seasons.
I think the percentage chart that Jeff is referring to, it takes care of that. You know, at the bottom of the list are the sports that have 25 games, and this is how many you would miss. At the top is 10 games, and, I mean, I think that does work out equitable, and I don't think we've ever had an issue with that.
No, and it's typically this, I mean, if you were to put the calendar up there, it's probably the same amount of time. Like, takes, for your first violation, it's probably going to take you a couple weeks to become eligible, based on your game schedule.
So when they're ineligible, they are still
They have
supposed to go to practice?
Yes, they have to practice, they have to go to every practice, they have to travel to every game, they can't suit up, they have to be in street clothes.
But they are supposed to go to them?
Absolutely, yep.
And is there
Unless the
any-
coach is encouraging them to, you know, do something else, you know. Most situations, yes, they're going to practice and attend games.
And no penalty as far as then extending games missed or something if they don't come to practice, or how is that addressed?
Absolutely, yep. If they don't come to practice, then you just keep extending it. That's, I mean, you don't have it in front of you, but in the athletic code, it talks about the reinstatement process.
Mhm.
That's part of it.
So what did your coaches think about, I mean, I'm assuming they're on board with this, but like, in general, did they, I guess, what was their feedback?
Yeah, I had no pushback on the 20%, 40%, 365 days. And then I'm going to bring up the, if you're in attendance and I'll give you that information, and it may shock you actually what their opinion was on it. And the reason I asked them, I wasn't expecting the feedback that I got, but.
Well, we can certainly go into that and then
Okay.
come
You know,
back to this.
I mean,
in general.
I'll just make a comment on this. I look at the reduction, you know, from 40 to maybe 20. The kids are still being punished, and I know some of these kids, some of these athletes, this is kind of what they do, and they need the sport. It might be good for them, it might help them keep out of trouble. They might not be the A student, maybe they're a D student, and we turn them into a C student by playing sports. So I don't want to, I'm not for letting them off scot-free. I don't think they're getting off scot-free at 20%, but 40% on a first violation can be pretty harsh on, you know, if you're talking, if it happens a couple weeks into the season, maybe you played 2 football games and now you're going to miss the next 4 games, 5 games. The season's kind of, you know, basically over. So I don't know, that would be my thoughts on the reduction. I think I could live with it, I guess. That would be my opinion, but.
For a winter sport, if you're out 40% of the season, you're out till, sport starts mid-November, you're out till at least mid-January.
Yeah.
How many athletic code violations do we have a year where we're in this situation?
Average 7 to 10 in the last 3 years.
Of first violation?
And that could be grades, that could be illegal substances, that could be in attendance at a gathering where there's illegal substances.
How often do we get to a second violation?
I think I've had it twice in my 3 years.
Okay.
Did you feel that in this average of 7 to 10, did you feel that the punishment was too much or too little, or?
We were more flexible with the honesty reduction, so we were able to get many of those kids down to a 20% because they were able to turn themselves in, except for some of these situations where it happened on campus, or a teacher saw them at Quick Trip and they were vaping or whatnot. Then when we had prior knowledge, then you don't have an opportunity, then you're out 40%. It's still stupid, but, you know, it's, yeah, you made a mistake, but does the crime meet the punishment? I thought it was a little harsh at times in those situations. Now, it doesn't mean I'm okay with vaping. It doesn't mean that I'm supporting that. Probably comes off as that and that we're reducing this and we have this issue and, but.
So did you see some detriment to this punishment in these 7 to 10?
Yeah, I would agree with what Dale said. You know, a lot of times the kids that are running into these issues aren't our 5-star kids related to athletics. They're the kids who are on the fringe and, you know, they need athletics and, you know, if you reduce that, there's a little more light at the end of the tunnel, I feel like, for them to stick it out and continue on and, you know,
But to be clear, our athletic code violations that came from our A students to our F students.
Yes.
They can be anybody.
Yeah,
And it
it can
has
be
been and it always will be.
Right.
I don't really, I don't even think you need to look at what type of student here. Again, I think that if we're at 40% and you, again, I just don't know why you want 20, because you give them the lowest people here is 20%, but then you have 4 other schools, which again, they should all be the same, let's be clear. We should all have the same ethical background here, and consequences to all these kids. But it looks like we should be at 25%.
And I don't disagree with you, Joe, but the reason I chose 20 is because we don't have an opportunity to get down to 10% as 3 other schools have. So some of the, St. Croix Central has an opportunity to get down to 10%, Somerset has an opportunity to get down 10%, and at Osceola, if you take a class, you have an opportunity to get down to 10%. We don't have that opportunity, so that's why I chose 20%.
Yeah, so they're coming out saying they're at 25,
Yeah.
but in reality, they
They'd
show
be
up
at
for an
10.
hour-long
Yeah.
class and you're down to 10%.
Right. And you can entertain some of those ideas, I just don't know how meaningful they are, or if kids are just doing it to jump through a hoop to get a reduction.
Well, I would agree with that, I guess, but then I don't know how meaningful it is either, but if they're willing to jump through the hoop to do it, that shows that then they probably realize that they made a mistake and they're willing to try an extra step to do that process. I know we talked about this with athletics, but there are other organizations too that kids are part of, and I've seen literally kids who are 17, 18 years old in different areas, not athletics. I'm a cow girl, I'm a cow background girl, but we have people representing FFA functions, and we have people representing National Holstein. A girl was just yanked. Her crown was literally just yanked for inappropriate content on social media that was far less than, it was a picture, of her maybe having a beverage in her hand that maybe wasn't, who knew if it was or wasn't alcoholic or not. Questionable content of dancing, something like that, wasn't something that somebody wanted representing their organization. And unfortunately, we're having to learn about that at a younger age, that those kinds of things have consequences. I think you're right, that does the punishment fit the crime? And I think Dale is also right, that you want to retain those kids, and if that's kind of the thing, if they could go through a class or another learning opportunity, maybe it would show that they have another avenue to learn something. But you're right, I don't know if it's meaningful or not. I mean, I've seen plenty of people that have sat prison time and jumped through the hoops in prison too, to tell people what they want to hear, and they go right back out and do the same thing. But I think that's kind of the idea that we're trying to make here with an athletic code, right?
Yeah, I mean, with my counseling background and now with my athletic director background, and, our offices are considered safe spaces for kids who are vaping and want to stop. And I don't know, Mr. Gould and I could probably count on one hand how many kids truly told us that they wanted to actually quit and needed help and support. And so my vision would be they would be taking advantage of the system. But there's exceptions to everything. You will always have a kid that maybe is genuine and, but again, it's 20%, so we're not talking a 40% situation either, but That's my 2 cents.
Now, with the second violation, do the other schools have reduction plans or
No,
incentives?
it's only for the first.
Only for the first? Okay.
I believe it's only for the first.
Okay.
So what would be a more harsh penalty? 20% with no chance for, attending a class to get it reduced down to 10%, or a 25%, missing 25% of a season with a chance of getting it down to 10%. So to me, it seems like a flat 20% would be more harsh, if you will, than 25% with
Yeah.
a chance to get it down to 10.
Which is why I chose 20%, but because we don't have an opportunity to go to that 10%.
Right.
Or, I mean, you could even just say, I mean, not 10%, you could use then the opportunity of getting down to 20%. If you went with a 25, it would only be a 5% reduction. Does that, I guess I don't know, obviously in other sports, it would account for a different number of
Yeah.
games in every sport.
Yep.
But then not down to 10, but maybe where your target, maybe that you're proposing,
Mhm.
they would just have to do an extra step to get there.
So then would you want to, usually it's half, so the first one would be 25%, the second one would be 50%. And then you got to create opportunities for them to get that reduction, obviously, for their first violation. And then talk about what those opportunities are.
Right.
Right, and then you're saying there's some kind of class, so when is this class and who's teaching this class and who's getting paid to?
And how soon can you get
facilitate this class?
reinstated and the whole, I
And is the
get
kid
that.
taking the class, or is somebody, but.
To WITC or in Barron, it's cheap, and everyone goes to it who gets an underage alcohol, pretty much.
They only offer it
And
at
what
certain
is-
times, though, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing they're not offered every 2 weeks, right? I mean, which is kind of what you're gonna need. I mean, that's kind of what you would need, though, in order to
Right.
get your suspension lowered and then back into, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. I get it.
And the coach's input on this?
So when it came to the 20%, the 40%, the proposals, nobody said a word about the 20%, 40%, or 365 days.
So you were saying that they had more input on the attendance where illegal
Yes.
substances are present?
Yep.
Sorry, I don't mean to move us ahead,
No,
but
but-
if you're still in the middle of it, but if we want to go to failing a class in those two, I guess I'd like to hear about those before we.
Okay, so we'll go to the failing in class. Okay, so currently, you can see on here where we fall if you fail a class. So currently, it's 15 school days. Again, not calendar days, so that's 15 school days.
Sorry, can you just clarify one more thing? Failing a class, meaning like,
59.99% or below
okay, and how does that,
at the end of a term, so we have
at
4
the
terms.
end of a term?
Yep.
Okay, so it's not in the middle of the
Yep.
term?
It's not like, oh, I know I'm gonna fail the class, can I serve my athletical violation right now? It's after the
After
term is
the rating
officially
period's
over,
okay.
yep.
Because sometimes
And
grades
are-
fall, I mean,
yep.
hopefully they're not falling that low, but sometimes they fall because you were out or,
Yep.
you know, you missed something or whatever. Okay, so with that, thank you.
So you can see, as we compare to other middle border schools, we are 15 school days, and this is kind of where the spring example would come in, but with all those games packed in there. But Somerset, I believe, is 15 calendar days, so it includes the weekends, and then you have the other schools are at 10% of the season. And you can see for 2 failing grades and 3 failing grades how we compare to the other schools. And I have in red what I would be proposing and what I spoke with our coaches about, which they supported the feedback. So we're looking at 10% for 1 failing grade. And I have had, not in my time here, but I have had a kid fail calculus. Now, I'm not going to say that that kid couldn't have done some things better, but he also failed calculus. And again, typically teachers will work with you, but you got to look at all these different situations that can occur. 30% for 2 failing classes, and then if you have 3 failing grades, you're out the whole next grading term. So after first term here in early November, if I have 3 failing classes, I need to spend some time focusing on my studies. I'm out until 3rd quarter. You can still practice, but
And does this this is all just for one quarter? Is it, so if I failed one class this quarter, and second quarter I failed another class, would that be 2 failing grades then? Or would that would reset every quarter then?
So you're saying like if you fail the class come November 5th, you're not playing a winter sport, you fail another class?
Well, let's say you are playing a winter sport.
So let's do this scenario. You sit out the fall sports season 10% because of a grade from, well, let's say the winter. Your grade comes in November, you're ineligible for the start of second term. You do your punishment, you go through the term, and then at the end of the semester, you have another F.
Which is by January.
Starts over again, that would be, now you've got a 10% window to, I assume that's what you mean there, Jeff?
So then that student, if they failed 2 classes in different terms, they would technically sit out 20% of that season. Because they serve the 10% at the beginning, go through the season, fail a class by January 22nd-ish, and now they have to sit out 10%.
And how many of these students fall into this kind of a scenario?
I would say 1 or 2 a term.
Okay. So it's not huge numbers.
And these students and their parents are usually communicated with multiple times, offer extra assistance. I mean, it doesn't just come out of the blue usually.
So I guess I'm kind of wondering, like 15 school days versus 10%. I mean, 10% of a season, you're talking, you know, a couple games, so that could take you a couple of weeks. 15 school days, you're talking like at least 3 weeks.
So the spring example is really helpful here. So let's say we don't start playing spring athletics until April 20th, and now we're playing 4 games in a week.
Right.
Well, you're gonna miss 4 games, you're gonna be out 15 calendar days.
Right, so you're gonna miss 3 weeks.
For sure, 15 school days.
Right.
So at least 3 weeks if we don't have a day off for Easter or whatnot in there. So,
Right.
I mean, you could miss 13, 14 games based on how it currently reads.
Do you have any of a consequence for not taking care of this? So they fail it, obviously they can't take that class because they failed it and it isn't offered the next term? Or is there some curriculum that they deal with to bring that failing grade to a passing?
Well, they have to have, once they start the new term, they have to have all their classes need to be passing before they can actually be reinstated. So technically, so you, basically, if you fail a class on second term, okay, so I'm out January 20th, we'll use that date roughly. Now I have to sit out 15 calendar days. I can still practice. My coach might tell me, hey, stay after school and work with your science teacher, whatever, but technically you're supposed to continue to practice. By the time you come up and serve your 15 days, you have to be passing not just that one class, but all classes.
Okay.
And then what I think you're talking about, Keith, you know, depending on what the class was, it could have been a required class. And so now there's a totally different thing. You know, now that student is working with myself and the school counselors because it's a required class they need for graduation that they might have to retake again, maybe this year, maybe it gets rescheduled for next year.
Okay.
Recommendations, so you saw recommendations, 10% for 1 failing class, 2 failing classes, you're out 30%, and then 3 failing classes or more, you're out the next grading term. Okay, so this was a situation that happened to a neighboring school that sparked this conversation. Essentially, if you are at a gathering where there's illegal substances, and I use the alcohol party situation, I blow zeros. Most athletic codes that you'll see is you're out a 1-game suspension. Which our previous athletic code, it was an athletic code violation. So you would have been out technically 40% of your season and you blew zeros. You know, doesn't mean you're making a great decision. You're at a gathering where there's illegal substances, but you're not using. You can have your thoughts on that. But when I talked to our coaches, they were recommending the first offense, you meet with the athletic director A reminder that, hey, if you're in the presence of illegal substances, whether it's at Quick Trip and somebody else was vaping, you're in that car together, it's technically an athletic code violation. The second time they're caught with that, they're out 20% of their season. The third time, they're out 40%. Remember, if you sit out an event in the postseason, so this happened around the baseball season, if you sit out the first regional game due to an athletic code violation, you're out for the rest of the postseason. Even if it's just a one-game suspension in our athletic code, the WIA says any athletic code violation in the postseason, regardless if you're going to play one game or you're going to play 5 games, you're out. And it would be hard for me to look at the kid who blew zeros and say, I'm just using the extreme example that so he misses regional game, regional semis, regional finals, sectional semis, sectional finals, state semis, state finals, and that kid has to technically, and that's a WIA thing, that's not even, so it's based off of how your code reads. And with how these devices they just slip in your pocket, and again, it's at Quick Trip, parking lot, those type of situations, but I wasn't expecting the coaches to lean this way. I was expecting them, no, it should be a one-game suspension, but they believed a reminder that, hey, look, and I did bring up the example that a local school had with this.
I do think that we have situations that kids wouldn't be even aware that there were substances being used
Correct.
there, or in their presence, or that they were around. I totally wholeheartedly believe that. Unless it's some rager party where everybody's slashed and got a booze in their hand, I think it's very easy to conceal illicit drugs, prescription drugs, illegal drugs. It's easy to conceal vape pens where maybe a group of kids are doing them and another group wasn't, or they were just there because it was a social event or what have you. I would agree that it would be very easy for kids to really not know that those things were going on.
Do we need a motion?
Pretty soon. I have one more question, though. I'm confused here because it says, the one bullet says, in a first offense situation, a suspension of one contest will be enforced, but then down below, it says first offense is just a meeting with athletic director.
So I gave the coaches 2 options, so they had 2 proposals. I must have not updated that.
Okay.
So the first offense was either going to be a one-game suspension, or it was going to be a meeting with the athletic director to remind them how the athletic code reads.
Okay, and so you're saying that they went with the second
Correct.
option,
Yep.
and that is what you're recommending tonight?
Correct.
Okay.
I think that you have freshmen, young sophomores who don't drive, they go with some friends to see a friend's house, and then something happens, it's not like they can jump in and get out of there right away. So I think you have to have some understanding too that some of those kids that are put into a situation they had no control over.
Yep. Yeah, I think you have to be personally responsible, but I don't think you can be held necessarily responsible for the actions of others. So I'm big on personal responsibility, but not so much on those around you.
Well, I think that's a really good point. I think the other thing in all this is to take into consideration is parents are going to still be able to do whatever the heck they want on their own terms. Their punishment at home, their penalty at home. We're not trying to be like the sole, like this is the only thing no. But we're trying to have some sort of accountability here. But what parents want to do at home, same thing with vaping. These parents, they talk to us about solving their vaping problem. Please. That's not our job, okay? Help us out, parents. Help us with the vaping problem. You think your kid's so good? Make them take a test. Prove to you that they're not vaping. If you catch them, do something about it. It is impossible for Jeff and I to catch all these kids. It is impossible. And, parents need to get on board and help us because we can't solve all these problems for them.
Yeah. So, one more thing, I noticed that as we were going through this, we skipped the integrity clause, and I just wanted to look at that real quick because it says on the bottom, it says the student should be truthful and they're supposed to not be deceptive, and so it says if a student has been untruthful or deceptive, then they have the authority to increase the consequences.
Yeah, so we sit through investigations, essentially, we'll call them, and if kids want to bring us on a wild goose chase and they're not honest and they're not upfront with us, we would have the authority to increase their athletic code violation based on them not being honest and transparent.
So again, like if we take it down to 20, for example, and then they say, no,
Correct.
that wasn't me, blah, 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 and then you have to do all this digging around, and then you're
Yep.
like, listen.
Right. Yep.
So what do you do with the non-athletics that are vaping? What's the criteria there?
Just with the vaping as an example, we've done everything from 3-day out-of-school suspensions, which, as you can imagine, turns into a vacation for them, to referring them to the Amery Police for citations. We make them sit in the office right next to my desk, and I talk to them about their homework all day long. I don't know, that might be the greatest punishment we've had so far.
Is that the one that
So-
failed calculus?
You know, and like, honestly,
I don't know.
I'll tell you, where we get the most, where we see the most changes when the parents buy into the phone call they get from Mr. Fern and myself. But when the parents aren't surprised that we're calling in, I can tell you the kid's still vaping.
And so, I'll just say, so the kid comes down, they get caught vaping, they get a $92.50 citation. We also call their parents on speakerphone, and they get to speak to their parents about what happened. And believe it or not, the kid will be like, oh, I mean, I'm not gonna give a percentage, but yeah, my parents know I actually purchased this, or yeah, my parents bought it for me, or, you know, you hear the whole gamut, but I mean, typically, most of the time, parents are fairly supportive, I feel, of that behavior. Or they're not surprised they know their child's doing it. And I don't know if they're just not educated on what's in that device. It smells like cotton candy, but it's not cotton candy.
So, and then there's the violations if they're in a club or an organization or a performance or marching
Right.
band or whatever. Do you have any
I want 25% in reduction plans like everyone else has. I want it to be fair. Like, again, I do.
But I guess that, it's not fair though at 25% if those schools have a way to get it lowered. Then it's not fair, because then we're not.
Reduction plan? Isn't that the reduction plan?
So they have 25% with
25% plus possibility of reduction plans, if that's what everyone else is doing.
It's not everybody
fair.
else. It's Somerset, it's Osceola, and San Cruz Central, the three schools that have those opportunities. And Osceola is the 20%, and they have an opportunity, you take some classes, you can get it down to a 10%.
And we don't have.
I am just not a believer that those opportunities are meaningful for kids in that moment. You will find exceptions to everything, but I feel like I'm gonna jump through this hoop, and to me, it's more than just that.
So,
It isn't stopping the
in
behavior.
reality, if we were to go to 20% with no offerings of reduction, our penalty would be likely more severe than the other schools where it's 25% with a
Correct.
chance to go to 10%.
Correct. The only chance for a reduction is if we get that self-referral that nobody knew about this situation. And I use the example of the parent called their child in and said, look, he's not making good decisions.
And
Give him an athletic code
to
violation.
me, if somebody does that,
They're gonna want 20%.
it's hard to, yeah.
And then it
Yeah.
only goes down to 15, is what
Correct.
you're recommending, right?
Yeah.
So it's not going down to 10, it's going down to 15.
Well, I would make a motion that we approve the athletic and activity code changes as presented tonight.
Is there a second?
Yes, I will second that.
Aaron? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Sharp?
I nayed it.
What's that?
I'll say
He
nay.
did not say nay, aye, so.
Oh, he didn't say aye. I
Yes,
knew you didn't.
yes.
Are you saying aye?
Yes.
And Joe?
I'll nay.
Nay? So we have 4 yes, 1 nay. Passed. We can always revisit this.
I guess, I do believe that Josh brings a good point to say that there are other options. I mean, if parents are supportive enough to say, I would like to see my kids sit more than just this percentage, they do have the option to do that. My kid is 27 years old. Has never smoked a day in his life until he joined the Army. He started smoking, and then he started vaping to get off the smoking. And his mother threatened to come down and literally choke him. and now he has gone back from at least vaping to smoking, I don't believe that there's really anything that's going to have more impact than a parent in this situation. I think you make a good point in that role, and I think that's why I'll support the reduction of this, although I would say that I have reservations about it, but I do believe that it's not just the school's job to control this, and if we're only looking at this 7 times a year, I guess that's where I'll come from, is I'll explain my eye, how's that?
Yes, there you
Okay,
go, yes.
There you go.
Yes, the numbers aren't huge here, it may mean something. Next up will be our substitute pay. And that was not in the paper, but I added that. I asked Sean to
Yes,
add
that did come in. What you see on the screen are the cost comparables, if you will, to our neighbors. In essence, the neighboring school districts that a person that subs here would most likely also sub in. You see us at the top at 125, and you see everyone else's sum there. I guess I don't need to read them all to you. You can see them. And I'll turn it over to you. And if you wanted to do anything with this, you could take action on that this evening, or leave it as is.
I do know in Clear Lake, after 10 days, they get a $50 bonus.
Okay?
So, individual I talked to said, just give it to me up front. So I have to go 10 days. So now all of a sudden you get to May, and you ain't gonna get 10 days, well, why sub?
Oh, yeah.
For the extra. So, that was his thoughts. So it's just like, so do you wanna burden Twyla with keeping track of all that, or do you wanna just raise the amount for the daily rate?
So it's just a one-time $50 bonus is what you're saying, right?
Every 10 days.
Every 10 days.
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, that would seem kind of like an accounting nightmare.
Well, that's what I thought. I says, who's keeping track
For
of this?
$50, right?
For $50, yeah.
I know it was advocated for by our subs quite heavily.
The bonus pay.
Yeah.
I think they'd take an extra $5 a day, each
I
and
know
every
we
day,
kicked
rather
around
than,
hiring full-time subs, and there's a few that would do that too.
Yep, absolutely, yeah,
I think it's a very nice gesture, I think, given $50 or $50 bonus maybe for an extra 10 days, but,
Right, you divide 10 days by
it,
50
yeah, 10 by,
days, you have
50 by
$5 a
10,
day.
yeah,
Right,
$5 a
right.
day would seem to
And I
be
know
easier.
some offer lunch, a free lunch. But most don't take that. I shouldn't say most, the ones I talk to don't take the lunch.
yeah, I think, some do, some don't.
Do we know most of our subs from the Amery area?
My best guesstimate is, I can't imagine.
I would say
people
Amy,
are-
Clear Lake.
Yeah, this immediate 15, 20-mile radius, I would think.
But
So
they're
they're
hard to
probably not
find.
driving to St. Croix Falls or Luck for an extra $4.
Especially in
Yeah.
today's
$4,
gas
right?
prices, that would be illogical.
I will say in the conversations I've had just with my proximity to Pam's desk, I have been surprised, of the people turning her down, saying, no, I'm in Luck, I'm in St. Croix Falls.
Okay.
Far more than I heard 10 years ago.
Well, in this case, if you moved it to 130, you would beat Luck and St. Croix Falls by $1.
And you had kind of a rough impact.
Yes, well, you
right?
can't know for sure, because you don't know how many subs you're gonna have in any given year, but the approximation on the total number of dollars, if you increased it by $5, would be a $7,000 expense to the district. Obviously, if you moved it by 10, then it would be $14,000. We're hopeful that we'll be using less subs this year than we have in the last two, because we don't have as much COVID to deal with. So hopefully we won't
We
have.
hope.
Yeah.
Can we afford $14,000 extra?
It's a matter of what you have as your highest priorities. You can always afford 14,000, but what don't you do? For 14,000, there's always a trade-off, because you gotta balance your budget.
Right.
If you're asking for my recommendation, I would move it to 130, not 135.
At least keep pace.
Certainly. the sad reality is, the last time we moved this was to 125, and literally the next day, Osceola had a board meeting and moved theirs to 130, so can't win, I guess.
But I also, in talking with some of the subs, it's school atmosphere and how well they're received when they come to those buildings and by the other staff.
Oh, yeah. That's way more important than $5.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know the ones that, nobody even acknowledged that they were there, subbing. I mean, no thank yous, no, hey, this is where you go or whatever, and that's the last time they subbed there. So,
Are we able to make budget, Andrew, if I make a motion to change it to 130?
Well, actually, I asked Andrew this question this morning, and Twyla gave me the total number of dollars it would cost, and Andrew, unsolicited, sent me an email stating he had already budgeted for a $5 increase, so great minds think alike, I guess.
I miss ya. You're on it.
I will say also that that's why talking about the feel-good side of things, that they're acknowledging everything. At first, I was like, oh, free lunch or whatever, but I think that's an opportunity for feel-good where they would invite the sub to lunch with them, one of the other teachers or something. Hey, let's go grab lunch or whatever, and could be a good way to.
oh, by the way, you're buying?
Well, if you're in either of these buildings, you gotta eat lunch with your kids, so.
Right, yeah.
It's a great recruitment tool.
I know I would go for it, but.
Yeah.
I hear you, Andy, I'm with ya.
You wanna do it?
Can I motion?
Yes, you do it,
Okay,
or I'll do it. Let's do it.
Let's motion to change the substitute pay to 130 from 125.
Okay.
Second.
And Aaron, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There we go. Next up, donations.
Yep, we don't have any this month, but we do have quite a few next month. We have a lot of back-to-school stuff happening that we'll recognize next month.
Cool. All right. And then with that, we have our personnel.
The last item, personnel, new employment contracts for Andrew Eggert as a bus driver, Laura Lee Madsen, clubhouse assistant teacher, Peggy Marson, special ed para, Justin Shu and Matt Ziegler for middle school football and middle school assistant football. Resignation from Emily Richardson from club.
That's a reassignment.
Sorry, good catch. Reassignment.
Yeah.
Clubhouse lead teacher to clubhouse assistant teacher, and then resignations, Andy Deeb for business manager, Andrew Eggert, grounds and mechanic, Vance Frenshu for middle school basketball, Lori Galen from special ed para, Sally Hanks, bus driver, school nutrition, Vicky Heiss, bus driver, Drew Johnson and Carly Moning for clubhouse assistant, Aaron Osero as yearbook coordinator, and Ashley Peterson from district enrollment, high school guidance, and lastly, Harley Peterson as computer tech.
Next month, there's going to be more on top and less on the bottom.
Well,
hope so.
wouldn't be excited about hirings, because that means folks left or we have positions open, so.
Right.
Well, he
But
means,
we've got,
that's what he means.
We could always use more bus drivers and such, but we don't need to hire any teachers at this point,
good,
we hope.
yeah.
Move to approve the regular, the personnel action.
And a second,
Second.
Aaron, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no, none. I'll take a motion to adjourn. We don't need to go into closed
So
session.
moved.
Motion.
Joe and Aaron,
Yep.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?